You can't let your prospects get off the call before doing this, or else chances are they're not coming back. Welcome back to this video. This is going to be a super quick one where I talk about follow-up, right? And I'm going to start it off by pretty much just saying that most people, when it comes to follow-up, plain and simple, there's a lot of tips, there's a lot of tricks. You just kind of have to do it. It's something that you will succeed a lot if you just do it for long enough. Most people quit on their follow-up too long, but this video is not necessarily about how to do the follow-up. This video is not about the follow-up process, how long to do follow-up, or how many follow-ups, how frequently. It's not about that stuff. What I'm talking about is the setup in this video. I'm talking about before they leave the call, what can we do? What should we be doing to ensure that they actually come back to that follow-up call, so they show up? Because I've talked to many people and their show-up rate on follow-up calls are abysmal, super, super low. And 90% of the time when I go and I listen to their calls and then I look at their follow-ups, most of them, they're doing all the things. They watch the videos, they look at the scripts, they find stuff online, they buy all the little tips and tricks about what you should say, when you should say it, how many reminders, all of that stuff to get them to show up. So they're fine. But the main thing they're not doing, the main place that they're messing up, is the last 5 minutes of the call. How do you let that person go? In what way do you end that call in a way that has them more willing to buy, more willing to show up, and actually respecting you enough to respond to your follow-up messages afterwards, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. And, I'll say most follow-up fails because they don't focus there. That's why it fails. People don't respond because it's, what happens before. And at the end of the day, people aren't necessarily going to remember all of the things that happen at the end of the call, but they're definitely going to remember how they felt. So we want to make sure that we control the feeling and the emotions elicited at the end of the call, so that they are in a place where they're like, man, I gotta show up, I gotta change, I gotta do something, right? Now, a lot of people, they'll do a good job at the beginning, they'll do a good job at the middle, and they'll fluff up the end, and they'll think that's enough. But the problem is, just think back to any conversation you've had yesterday, a day before that, or the further back you go, the less and less and less you remember of the middle piece. Most people, we remember like the beginning, we remember nothing of the middle, and we remember the end, right? And then as time goes on, we might remember the words at the beginning, nothing of the middle, and the words at the end. Then we might remember only the feeling of the beginning, nothing of the middle, and the words of the end. And then as time goes on, we remember nothing of the beginning, nothing of the middle, and just how we felt at the end. That's usually the lingering thing that stands the test of days, maybe weeks, in a prospect that you've spoken to, is how did this person make me feel right before I got off the call? So that's what we want to focus on in order to make sure our follow-ups show up and respect us and are ready to buy. And to jump right into it, you want to ensure that they're committed to change before you leave the call. And when I say committed to change, I mean a detached committed to change. I don't mean committed to your service. I don't mean committed to your product. I don't mean committed to you. I mean committed to making some kind of change. If they're not there, you haven't done your job on the call as a sales professional, as the person who's supposed to lead them out of the pain that they've been in and towards the goals that they want to achieve. You haven't been the person they need to speak to if they're not getting off that call like, you know what? Man, I gotta solve this. I gotta get moving. I gotta take some form of action. So before someone gets off my call, that's the main focus. I'm tying down multiple times, and I'll even tell them, I'll say, listen, let's say, John, before we hop off, man, like, regardless of whether we're gonna work together or not, it really doesn't matter. What's really important here is that you are committed to finally doing XYZ so that you can get XYZ result, that you're committed to doing something. Like, I feel like I've done you a massive disservice, and I'll say this to them. I feel like I've done you a massive disservice, John, if you leave this call, still on the fence of whether you're going to do something, whether it's with us or some other company. I don't care at this point. What really matters is you getting the result, is you finally being able to get XYZ results so that you can XYZ thing in the future. So, you know, you finally shaving the weight so that you can take your shirt off at the beach and spend time with your family without being ashamed of the way you look. Whatever, they told me on the call, I'm going to plug those things in there. And I'm going to say what matters is you finally deciding to do something about this so that you can get that result. And, you know, are you committed to that? Right? You know, and if they try to, we'll see with the money and this, and then I'll reiterate again. I'll be like, dude, regardless of whether it's moving forward with me, man, like, you know, when we meet later on, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at the end of the day, man, you have to be committed to doing something. Are you committed to making that change? And they need to say yes to that before they get off the call. Because if they're not committed to change, then they were never going to show up to the follow-up, or they were never going to buy regardless. So you tie that down, you ensure they have that commitment, you ensure they're locked in there, you ensure that that's the last thing on their mind before they get off the call is, I have to do something. And then they see this person, you know, is kind of detached, whether it's with them or not. This person clearly just cares about me getting the result. I like that. I love that. I love that this person is showing that the most important thing here is me getting help, is me solving this problem, is me achieving these goals. It's not just about buying their thing. I like that. I respect that. And I appreciate them taking the time to drill that in before we hopped off this call. That feels good. They're calling me out a little bit. It feels a little sucky. It might feel a little shitty, but at the same time, I know I needed it and I can respect that. So you know what? I'm going to respond to that person's follow-up. I'm going to show up to the call next week because it sounds like, and it feels like, they have my best interest at heart regardless of the commissions they'll make. They have my best interest at heart. So I'm going to show up to that follow-up. I'm going to respond to their text. I'm going to respond to their email, and I'm going to get on that call and actually have a real discussion with them, and most likely buy from them, because that's the person I need. That's the leader I need in my life. Someone that cares about me getting the result regardless. Right. So if you do the ends of your calls this way, when, you know, after you've done everything you could, if they have to be a follow-up, if it has to lead to a follow-up for whatever reason, always tie down their commitment to change and make sure it's detached on your part, detached on your gain, and all about them getting the result regardless of who they work with and what they end up doing. They have to be committed to change. You do that, people will respect you, people will show up, and more people will buy. I'm going to leave it there for this video. Hope that helps. I'll see you guys in the next one.